Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and on this segment of the show, I have divorce attorney Silvana Raso of Schepisi McLaughlin, who is calling in all the way from Englewood Cliffs in New Jersey. Now, among the many divorce-related skills that Silvana has, she specializes in the topic of divorce mediation, and will be talking to you today about how to navigate divorce without destroying the family. Now, that sounds like a really interesting topic, so let's not keep her waiting any longer. Silvana, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Stewart. How are you?
Great. I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come and join us. So, Silvana, can you briefly, in your own words, just describe the kinds of people that come to you and the kinds of situations they find themselves in when they need your help?
Well, Stewart, the kind of people who come in to see me are everyday people, people that we all know who are having problems in their marriage and who are looking to get a divorce. So it's from people from all walks of life, and the most common thing about the people that I meet is that they are scared. They're having trouble, and they are scared about what the future has to hold. There's so much unknown. They've made a decision that they want to end their marriage, but they don't know what that will mean and how it will look. So that's generally what I deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so with that said, then, while you're out there working on a day-to-day basis, Silvana, what's the most common misconception surrounding the topic of divorce litigation that you come across?
You're right. There's so many misconceptions about divorce out there, and I think the most prevalent one is that clients feel that if they are aggressive and they hire a pit bull and they go for the jugular, that they will maximize what they can get financially out of a divorce. And nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the exact opposite is true. What happens is when you take a super aggressive approach in a divorce case unnecessarily, meaning that nothing has happened that would warrant very extensive litigation, but you hire somebody and you give them the direction that I want you to litigate this, and I want you to go for the jugular, and I want to destroy my spouse. What ends up happening is that the attorney benefits because a lot of time and effort is spent on that process, but in the end, the money that you are looking to get is going to be paid to the attorneys who are litigating the case. And that's not what you want. The most important thing that people have to understand is that you have to come into a divorce attorney and be real and honest about what your objectives are. What is it that you want to gain? What is it that you want your life to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And then let the attorney guide you as to how we're going to get to that step, to that goal. But if you go in there thinking that if you just go in to destroy the other side, you're not going to achieve your goals, and you're going to end up spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do when you go through the divorce.
So when you think about those people who come to you in those situations where they're considering going through a divorce, or maybe they're already in the process of being divorced, can you share with us a case study, so to speak, or a short story of how you've helped a divorcing couple to overcome those common misconceptions that you come across on a regular basis? If you could do that for us, Silvana, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So what happens when I have a client who is taking the approach that they want to destroy their spouse, they want to go for the jugular? What I do is I have to take a step back and look at what does this client really want to achieve, and I have an honest conversation with the client about their goals and explain to them, look, you may be saying these things because you're angry, because you have resentment about your spouse. They may have done something, they may have been unfaithful to you, and you want to punish them. And it's my job to break out what the real motivation is, so that if the issue is an emotional one, that's something that can be dealt with a mental health professional, a therapist, a psychologist, that can assist the client with that. My goal is to figure out what the real goal is of the client and try to get there by using the least expensive, most effective means possible. And generally, that's settlement, which is achieved usually through mediation. Mediation can be a formal process, it can be an informal process, but that's really why I help clients. Let's dig down deep and figure out why you're saying the things you're saying, why you want to do what you want to do, and figure out how we're going to get there. That's the most important part of my job in guiding people to the life after divorce.
We're talking about how to navigate divorce without destroying the family. That's the theme of our talk today, Silvana. So when you think about those divorcing couples who come to you for help, can you just please share one of the most common unknown pitfalls that they might not be aware of but should be aware of when they're thinking about going through that process of destroying the family?
So the pitfalls that I see are that people get caught up in what I call the brush fires. You know, in divorces, we usually deal with custody issues, parenting time issues, how the children are going to spend the time with each parent. Is it going to be a 50-50 arrangement? Is it going to be 60-40? Is it going to be dad has the kids every other weekend or mom has the kids every other weekend? Those are big ticket items, such as alimony, such as child support, such as dividing up real estate or a business. With the pitfall that I see is, again, the emotional issues get in the way and people get caught up fighting about the little stuff. For example, I was involved in a case where I represented a client getting divorced from his wife. We were in a mediation, and we had experts with us in the mediation meeting, financial experts, accountants, because these people had tens of millions of dollars that they were trying to divide up. So between the mediator, my hourly rate, the other side's hourly rate, and the forensic accountants that we had in the room, we were spending about almost $1,000 an hour between all of these experts, $1,000 to $1,500 an hour. And we spent hours talking about a little wooden box that one side wanted and then the other side wanted. And the wooden box wasn't going to make any difference in anybody's life, and it really didn't have any sentimental value, but because my client wanted it, the other party wanted it. So we spent about $3,000 in expert fees and attorney fees wasting time having this conversation. And in the end, the only way it got resolved was we flipped a coin to see who would get it. These are the pitfalls, the brush fires that I see. And sometimes no matter what we tell our clients, look, it's not important. Let her have the box. Let's talk about big picture items. People get their emotions caught up in it, and they just focus on these little things. And that's the biggest pitfall that I see.
So those emotions can turn out to be very expensive in the long run, I gather.
Yes, very expensive, which is why I always recommend to my clients when I see them have these emotions that are festering, that keep coming to the surface when we're trying to talk about financial issues, I try to gently guide them to somebody who can help them with their emotional issues and put them in perspective and keep them in the right place and not bring them into the legal forum, because there really is no room for them there.
So, Silvana, if I may bring in something on a personal level, which I feel may add some value to a listener out there. I myself, in my childhood, had a very distressful divorce situation between my mother and father. And when they eventually did get divorced, it was almost like a tennis game in the middle, where if my mother was upset, it would be, go to your father, or do you want to go to your father? Or it used to work the other way around. So if you can imagine somebody sat there right now listening to you, and they're in that situation, a divorcing couple, they have children, what advice, what would you like to share with them in terms of how to navigate that situation where they have a child, and not to use the child as almost as a weapon, so to speak, against their partner?
Yes, Stewart, what you described is so unfortunate, and I see it very, very frequently. What I tell people is this: you have to decide for yourself whether you love your child more than you dislike your spouse. If your goal is to destroy your spouse and use your child in the process, at least be honest with yourself if that's what you're going to do. And don't kid yourself that you're doing this for your child's benefit, because doing the kinds of things that you have described. Luckily, you're in a place now where you're, successful in life and doing very well. But unfortunately, when people do things like that to their children, and I will be upfront with my clients, and I will say, if you don't believe me, go talk to a therapist or a child psychologist. Doing those kinds of things for children puts them at risk for drug addiction, alcoholism, homelessness, juvenile delinquency, mental health crises. If you want to guarantee that your child will be at risk for those things, keep doing what you're doing, because that's the path you put your child on when you use your child as a pawn or a weapon in a divorce. That's really my takeaway to people, that you really have to decide the love for my child is more important than my anger at my spouse. And once you make that decision, that's the key.
That's so profound what you've just shared with us there, Silvana, and I can echo that for you, that person who's listening right now, as an adult that went through that experience as a child in the middle of this relationship gone bad. It took me many, many years to get over that. I'm quite successful now. I'm 54 years old, but in my teenage years, my young adult years, I had very, very low self-esteem and blamed myself constantly for the breakup of my parents' marriage because I didn't know any different. I just didn't know why they were breaking up. So I've just blamed myself. So please, if you are going through this unfortunate position of going through a divorce, please be amicable about it, and especially with the children, because they're the most vulnerable ones in that situation. So thanks for sharing your insights on that for us, Silvana. So I have to take a deep breath because that's something that's really personal to me.
Yes, it's such an amazing thing that you shared with us as somebody who has experienced what I've described. It's heart-wrenching to watch it from my perspective, because I realize what's happening. But unfortunately, sometimes people can't stop themselves, and that's really why I like to work with a team of people, such as a mental health professional. If I see a parent spiraling into that kind of behavior, I push that mental health professional on them so hard, because I feel it's my job to protect the children that are the product of the divorce, because to the best extent I can, obviously I can't control what parents do, but if I can give the parents all the information, at least to warn them, scare them as to why their behavior is so detrimental to their children, I feel it's my obligation to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Silvana, you've shared a lot of great information in the short amount of time that we've had so far, and I'm sure if the person who's listening to you right now would love to know a little bit more about yourself, and especially in terms of your background, your education, and your experience as it all relates to the topic of divorce litigation. So if you could just spend a few moments to briefly talk a little bit about your backstory, please.
Sure. I graduated from college with a degree in political science, but I also majored in sociology, and that was really my love in college. I wanted to do social work, but I ended up going to law school, and when I started practicing, I did a lot of general litigation, not a lot of family work, and I ended up doing the family law and divorce work because nobody in my firm liked doing it. It can be very tough because you're dealing with people in crisis most of the time. And I think that you have to have a certain level of emotional intelligence to deal with that, to not simply do exactly what your client says, but to guide them. And sometimes you have to give them advice that they don't like to hear. So I think that takes a little bit of training in other areas other than just law, other than just business. And I feel that's my strong suit. I feel that I can bring people through the mechanics of the process and advocate for them, but I feel that emotional component is key if you're going to be dealing with families and people in crisis. So that's how I ended up in this. I got pushed into it, but I ended up liking it because I feel it's something that I can help people with and I can do well. So that's what I've been doing essentially throughout my entire career, and that's what I hope to keep doing for the rest of it.
And I feel your passion coming through. Is this something that you really enjoy doing, Silvana?
I do. And people often tell me and ask me, other attorneys in particular, I don't know how you do that every day. I don't know why you'd want to deal with people like that. But the reality is I don't see myself as any better than my clients. I'm not in any position to judge anybody for what's brought them to where they're at in life. I just feel that it's my goal and my desire to help them through it the best way I can. So that's really why I like to do it. It's not always pretty, but I'd rather have me doing it than somebody who really doesn't care about my clients. I really do care about my clients, not just about them, but their family and their children, even though I might never meet their children. So I do care about that, and that's really what drives me to do it.
Keeping the main topic of navigating divorce without destroying the family in mind, what would be your absolute best piece of advice to that person who's listening to you right now, who's thinking about, I've just got to get everything what I can out of this, and I've got to get my own back, and they're on that course of destroying their family? What would be your absolute best piece of advice for them?
My best piece of advice is think back to when you married the person that you are now seeking to destroy. There was a genuine affection and emotion between the two of you. Things may have happened during the marriage that hurt that, but you got together for a reason. You loved each other at one time. Respect that memory. Don't destroy it. And you brought children into this world. You now have an obligation to behave in a way that serves their needs first rather than your needs. So that should be the primary focus going forward. Serve your children. Don't destroy the good memories that you had, because there had to have been at least one or you wouldn't have married this person, and build on that so that the goal is at some point in time, your children are going to be married. You're going to be at a wedding ceremony with them. They're going to have children. One day, possibly, you want to be grandparents to those children. You may not be married, but you're still going to be family, and you can decide the kind of family that you want to be. Are you going to be the kind of family that can't be in the same room together, so you're going to make things uncomfortable for your children when they have children or when they get married? Or are you going to be the kind of family that can look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, the marriage may not have worked out, but at least we could be decent human beings and respect one another going forward?
Perfect. So if that person wants to get hold of you then, Silvana, where will they find you? How can they connect with you?
So we have a website for the firm that's Schepisi.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Silvana Raso, and on Twitter and on Facebook, Schepisi McLaughlin.com, Schepisi McLaughlin on Facebook. And I've also started a new Instagram account, new _foundations, where I kind of offer this advice and advocacy on a more personal level than some of the other business platforms.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. However, I have to say a big thank you to our guest, Silvana Raso. So thank you for sharing with us today, Silvana. You've been really insightful, and you've certainly proved that you're an educator and an advocate for your client success. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me on, Stewart. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So, and in terms of you, the listener, thank you also for joining us on, what I would say was a very informative conversation with leading family divorce attorney Silvana Raso, all the way from Englewood Cliffs in New Jersey. So again, I'm Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more divorce professionals in this, our series of divorce-related conversations. So until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.